I call the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, New Zealanders face a stark choice. They have a choice between a Labour-led government that will manage the economy in a way that is inclusive, a place for everybody with returns to everybody, that is sustainable and that is a high-value economic strategy. Or it can have more of the same. More of the same means declining productivity, it means PR spin from the government, and it means most New Zealanders are getting poorer, stung by a crippling housing crisis. So let's first name the game, then let's look at the effects, and then let's look at how we change it. You know, the government's game is pretty obvious to most Kiwis. Open up the gates to immigration and unrestrained foreign investment, pump up the dollars, don't give a damn about the impact on individual Kiwi families, just go for the headline number, that total GDP. And okay, it's increasing by about 3% a year, but GDP per person is declining to flat. Productivity is declining to flat. We are stuck with all our cows in one exit, making commodities that are worth less and less. And now, after the fact, the government's talking about diversifying something they should have been talking about a decade ago. So the game is pump up that headline number by letting in as many people and as much investment as you possibly can and ignore the effects on the ground. Well, what are those effects? The first is that most New Zealanders are getting poorer. Well, here are the numbers, and they're from the government's sources and from the Parliamentary Library. Working families' share of GDP, that's New Zealand's total income, has fallen by $50 a week per family under National, because under Labour they were getting around 51% of all extra growth went to working families. Under National, that's declined to 37%. The difference is about $50 a week that families should be getting, but they're not. And 50,000 more Kiwis are unemployed under this government than under the previous government. 50,000, it is 144,000 now. By the government's own numbers, it was 96,000, which was admittedly too many, but it's gone up by nearly half, another 50,000. And many of those are young people. 80,000 young Kiwis are either not in employment or not even in education and training. The government's left them behind. And if they did have jobs, then they would discover that it didn't really matter, because the Kiwi dream for them is gone, because National's housing crisis is crippling middle New Zealand, absolutely gutting it. People hate living in Auckland now for two reasons. One, the Minister for Gridlock hasn't fixed the traffic because the government's pumping up the immigration numbers to make GDP growth look better, and there's 40,000 more cars on the road in Auckland, and you can't take that many people onto the trains. It's getting worse, ask any Aucklander, not getting better. You know, and what are they driving to? Well, it won't be a house that young people can afford to buy, because the housing crisis has become a national shame. People are leaving Auckland in droves. It's getting hard for schools to recruit teachers, hard to employ nurses, hard to get cops to go there because they can't afford to live there. And think about the impact on superannuation, when a generation from now, most people won't have paid off their home, because if they have one at all, they'll get into it later in life and they won't have time to pay it off. New Zealand super wasn't built to pay mortgages, and it wasn't built to pay rents. The elder poverty in New Zealand, because of this government's housing crisis, is going to be crippling. Yes, it's the estimates debate, and we are lifting the lid on some of the underlying economic problems that are driving New Zealand backwards, and you can't get past the housing crisis, and all New Zealanders know that's true. The third key issue is that there is no plan for sustainable economic growth. You get rich as a country by lifting productivity, by making sophisticated products and services that people want to buy. Do you know that in Fonterra, in the last 5 years, the proportion of milk going into high value-added products hasn't shifted at all? Under this government's watch, no more product is going into high value.
I'm calling Alistair Scott.